Hello, Mr. Minnick, helping Python students learn how to trace for loops that involve the range function and three parameters in the parentheses. So imagine the situation where you're creating a layout for a board game, like an online board game where there are a bunch of squares that are continuously arranged in a horizontal pattern like this, and your board game behind the scenes on some kind of planning document, some design form, you've numbered these squares from either 1 or 0 and up. I'm just going to keep this simple and number these square 1, 2, 3, etc. Up to whatever this takes us. Now you might have this for loop that actually in some area of your program where you're setting up the screen to make it look the way it does, you decide to use a for loop with a variable called I, which is very traditional, for I in range, and to use what's called the range function. It's very traditional in Python in the context of for loops. For I in range, something, comma, something, comma, something, and we're going to have three numbers there. And then at some periodic time, you're going to have some function that fills in a square. So that is a detail that's left to the mind and imagination or implementation of you, the YouTube viewer. So just assume that there's some function like DEF, defined function, that causes a square to be filled where the number that's sent as a parameter to that function that's typed out somewhere, whatever number's in here, that square ends up being filled in with whatever the current pen color it is. So let's proceed, and your job is to track the variable I, but also to show me which of these squares get filled in or not. And I'm just assuming that they're all filled in there. Sorry, I should have had this already drawn out to keep this video short, but it's going to take me a second here. Okay, well, the situation is I want every third square to be filled in. And for some reason, I want to start with square 2, because 1's like special and I don't want it filled in. But I want 2 to be filled in, and I want 5 to be filled in, and 8, and 11, and so on. Now, to do this with our old code back in the Intro to Computer Science course, that would have been a lot of brute force. Kind of like that one time somebody tried to do a retro Pac-Man maze game, and he had like 1,000 lines of code. He was here one time locked in overnight. The custodian just allowed him to work all night long on his program. Yeah, the school district gave him food and water, but he was like doing brute force. No, there's a better way to do it now that you know how to use a for loop. For I in range 2, 17, no, 18, for reasons I don't want to get into right now, 18, even though you see a 17 there, I want an 18 here. And then 3. Okay, let's trace this. Well, I always start at whatever number is here first if you have 2 or more numbers in the parentheses. So I starts at 2. And that means that currently there's a 2 in here stored for I when we go through the body of the for loop. So that I is passed as a parameter to some function def, fill square. And you're just supposed to know that square number 2 ends up filled in with some begin fill, end fill turtle graphic command. So far, mission accomplished so far. Then the loop goes back up to the top, and 3 gets added to the variable I because of the presence of that third number in the parentheses, that third parameter. And 2 plus 3 is 5. We put a single slash through the 2. And we ask, is 5 at 18 yet or not? No, it's not. So we do go through the loop again. And this time, I is 5. So a 5 gets passed as a parameter to some function where, sorry, I got off track there, where we don't need to see the function. We just trust that this function fill square works. But with 5 as the parameter, so that's filled in. Then the loop goes back up to the top. I think you can see the pattern now. We add this 3 amount to the current 5 over here to get 8. 8 is not at 18 yet, so the 8 gets passed as a parameter. So this is filled in. We have the look that we want. Every third square is filled in for a nice aesthetic look to our board. This bumps up to 11. 11's not 18, so that gets filled in. The 14 gets filled in. The 17 does get filled in because 17 is not at the 18 yet. And then I thinks, should I go to 20? No, it doesn't hit 20 because it knows that would take it to or over, either equal to the 18 or over. Anything like that's illegal. So it stops at the 17. That's what should be circled. And this is the look of the board at the end of that version of a for loop that uses the range function with 3 parameters. That 3 is often called the step expression or step amount. It's how much we're stepping the variable I up the number line. This 18 is still the upper boundary like we studied in previous videos. And that 2 is the initial number for I. And by the way, that upper boundary is one that you're not allowed to hit and be equal to. Now you can have negative numbers. If your first number in the parentheses is say 18, and then you have a comma 2, you could have a negative 3 as the step amount, in which case it would pretty much do the same thing. No, I could have had a 17 and then a 1. Sorry about this scribble. This could have been done with a 17, comma 1, comma negative 3. The effect would be that it would fill in from right to left rather than the left to right. If the animation of this board print layout is important, we'd have the aesthetic look of like right to left rather than the original left to right by putting 17, comma 1, comma negative 3 or 17, comma 0. Really, any number 17 and 1 or less would have worked with a negative 3 there. Have a great day. Yet another short video that hopefully helps you understand the for loop in conjunction with the range function and specifically with 3 parameters in a more visual turtle graphic way than my typical boring numberers, like adding up the amount of money in a bank account when you're compounding interest over a period of time. Although not boring when you're spending the money or just knowing that you have some nice savings. Anyway, goodbye.